Hello dear LinkedIn community, nice to see you again, nice to meet you. I have something very important today for certain head of qualities, CEO of medtech companies or pharma companies, and it's something I've seen several times in different companies, and it's absolutely blowing my mind. I can not understand why people internally and management doesn't see it or don't see it. I think they're too far away sometimes to see redundancies they have created that cost them literally millions and millions of euros every year and are absolutely unnecessary. It's a kind of emotional topic for me because in my past career I had several confrontations in this regard where I simply couldn't understand the software selection of big pharma companies especially. And once you start to dig who chose this software, you immediately ran against the wall. And mostly this wall was an IT wall. Like in some companies, the IT department decides which software quality control or quality assurance should use, which is utter nonsense, utter nonsense. It's really applicable to every major company on this planet, especially in Europe. I'm sharing my screen right now. I'm not making any advertisement for us or anything else. It's really just, let's go to the point. So every system in the GXP world or in our quality world has a project team, has infrastructure that needs to be set up, maintained, and qualified. Of course, a big validation package coming with validation manager, IT people, business people, and so on. You know, the big validation we have training and deployment strategies. If it's a local application, it's easier. If it's global, it's much, much more difficult. We have interfaces to other systems, which are basically a complete own sub-project that needs to also be maintained. You have IT people, business people, compliance people, interfaces normally involved. And then, of course, we have the ongoing lifecycle management of a system, where all of this is happening more or less all the time. So for all of this, you need to have tremendous overhead normally. You need to have, of course, infrastructure, software licenses. It's not easy to implement a GXP application in our world today. However, everybody knows this, and everybody is super critical with all of these aspects. What they are never really critical is the step before, do we really need this software? Why do we not simply use another software and add a functionality to it? And for that, I would like to show you an example. For example, this is something happening all around the world. This is just one possible scenario. You have LIMS applications managing your laboratory workflows, your analytical part, sample management, and so on and so on. And you could have, for example, an environmental monitoring part, which means that you have an application that is running your sample management in clean rooms, your microbiological or bioburden samples, all the stuff that needs to be done for environmental monitoring, media control, particle monitoring, and so on. So now you end up with having on the left side, a LIMS application that has a full-blown system, project team, validation, and so on. On the right side, you have now environmental monitoring project team, software application, infrastructure, interfaces, and so on. You need to interface normally also these two systems together so they speak to each other, so the LIMS system and the environmental monitoring system, instead of just having a LIMS that can do both. Why not just using a LIMS that has one environmental monitoring functionality? I know many people will say, the other software can do much more. It's much more capable. It's not fulfilling our business requirements, sir. Yeah. No, it does. It is actually, from what I have seen over my now nearly 2 decades in GMP applications, it is not a problem at all, actually. You do not need this, guys. You do not need this if you can have this. And this is possible. And let me this is my estimation. This is my proposal. A small company under 100 FTE has, of course, a smaller LIMS system. It's way easier with all the project adaptation. Training efforts are much lower. It doesn't have so many systems to interface with, if at all, and so on and so on. I estimate that you need over 250,000 euro, somewhere between 250,000 and 1 million euro for a small company to maintain a fully compliant GXP application, which translates to overall with all departments, let's say 5, 6, 7, 8 full-time equivalent people in Europe, including, of course, all the overhead costs that needs to be calculated in, all the licensing costs, server costs, and so on and so on. For medium-sized companies up to 1,000 FTEs, it's much more. It's at least €1 million per year. You have more people doing more stuff, your processes are more complicated, you have more complicated infrastructure, you need to invest more brain power everywhere, and you have a bigger quality assurance or quality control team. Of course, training is more intense, and so on and so on. For large companies, I talk about big pharma. This is 5 million up to endless, basically. It can go for sure up in some companies to 10, 15, 20 million dollars or euros just to maintain the system and implement the system. I'm talking about groups being involved, entire validation teams being involved, having a quadrillion meetings with highly paid people in over 3 years to get something maybe implemented, having interfaces teams from MES, from SAP, from environmental monitoring, from the LIMS application, from all the other application you might have, trying to figure out how to interface things over months and years. This is huge cost. There is no question in this. Yeah, and you can avoid this as a manager. You as head of quality or a CEO, you should question your software selection of the operational areas. I know it sounds maybe weird to interfere so much in these areas, but imagine people just do this repeatedly in different scenarios, in different areas. You end up having 250 applications and you're paying for the lifecycle management of all of this. And yes, of course, it can be avoided in this very simple scenario, for example. And yes, of course, you should avoid unnecessary redundancies. Sometimes it's better to buy a functionality in an already validated system than to buy a new application and go through the hell again. We have no ties to Labware itself in regards to any partnership or referral program or anything else. However, I consider our company self the Labware experts. If you have quality control, if you are a manufacturer or do laboratory services, if you need a LIMS, take the Labware LIMS system. This is my personal recommendation as somebody who has now worked with 3-4 of the leading systems. For me, the Labware system is still the strongest currently. Other systems are for sure good as well. They're great. There are many systems out I know from Abbott there is a system out. For Thermo Scientific there is a system out. I'm sure they're equally great. So take it with a grain of salt, please. But for us personally, we go with Labware. We have great experiences here. And if you configure your Labware system well, because you as a manager understand I should invest more in a good setup, a good solid foundation, then your processes will lead to additional cost savings because you will, over time, it will take 2 or 3 years, more efficient laboratory and quality assurance and release procedures. It's very important if you take a GXP application, question if you really need a new application, and question everybody, get the proof, understand it, that says, yes, we need 3 systems to manage these 2 workflows. Question it, because the overhead costs are tremendous. Well, I'm sorry for this little rant. I hope this helps some of you maybe, and I'm here to help you immediately. Free call. I will tell you, cut the bullshit. I will tell you what you need, especially when it comes to QC applications. Over time, you learn a lot, you see a lot, and at least we can maybe give you the right variable to move to another direction perhaps, or to reconsider your direction. At the very least, I can do that for you. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye-bye.